The rain came down in sheets. A relentless assault that turned the streets of Willow Creek into rivers of mud and despair. Ethan Caldwell, soaked to the bone, stumbled through the storm, his heart heavier than the waterlogged boots dragging him forward. He was running not just from the thunder cracking above, but from a life that had shattered in a single, devastating moment. It was supposed to be a simple evening. Ethan, 24, had planned to meet his parents at their favorite diner to finally tell them the truth. He was gay. He'd rehearsed the words for weeks, his palms sweating as he imagined their reactions. His mother, with her soft-spoken faith, might cry but eventually understand. His father, a stoic mechanic who valued normalcy above all, was the wild card. Ethan had prayed that love would outweigh disappointment. But when he'd sat across from them, the words tumbling out in a nervous rush, his father's face had hardened. "You're no son of mine," he'd said, voice like gravel, before walking out. His mother, tears streaming, had followed, leaving Ethan alone with a half-eaten plate of fries and a heart in pieces. Now, miles from home, Ethan wandered aimlessly, the storm mirroring the chaos in his chest. His phone was dead, his wallet empty, and the nearest shelter, a gas station, was closed. Lightning split the sky, and he ducked under a massive oak tree, its branches offering little protection. He shivered, not just from the cold, but from the weight of rejection. Was this what his life would be now? Alone, unwanted, a stranger to his own family. That's when he saw the light. A soft glow flickered from a porch across the street, barely visible through the rain. A figure stood there, silhouetted against the warm yellow light, watching him. Ethan's first instinct was to keep moving. Strangers in small towns like Willow Creek weren't always kind to people like him. But the figure waved, a slow, deliberate gesture, and something in Ethan's gut told him to trust it. He crossed the street, mud sucking at his shoes, and climbed the creaky steps to the porch. "You look like you're drowning out there," the stranger said, his voice low and warm, like a fire on a winter night. He was about Ethan's age, maybe a year or two older, with tousled brown hair and eyes that seemed to see right through him. "I'm Lucas. Come inside before you catch your death." Ethan hesitated, glancing back at the storm. He had nowhere else to go. "I'm Ethan," he mumbled, stepping into the small, cozy house. The warmth hit him like a wave, and he realized how cold he'd been. Lucas handed him a towel, their fingers brushing for a fleeting moment, sending an unexpected jolt through Ethan's chest. The living room was simple but lived in, a sagging couch, a coffee table cluttered with books, and a fireplace crackling softly. Lucas gestured for Ethan to sit. "You don't have to tell me what happened," he said, pouring hot tea from a kettle. "But you look like you're carrying more than just the rain." Ethan clutched the mug, its heat seeping into his palms. He didn't know why, but the words spilled out before he could stop them. "My parents, they didn't take it well. Me being me." His voice cracked, and he stared at the floor, bracing for judgment. Lucas didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned forward, his gaze steady. "I know that kind of hurt," he said quietly. "My dad threw me out when I was 17. Told me I was a mistake. But you know what? You're not a mistake. And you're not alone." Ethan's breath caught. For the first time that night, he felt seen not as a disappointment, but as a person. Lucas's words were a lifeline, pulling him from the edge of despair. They talked for hours, the storm raging outside while something softer, more fragile, began to take root inside. Lucas shared his own story, how he'd rebuilt his life in Willow Creek, working as a carpenter, finding solace in small acts of kindness. Ethan, in turn, spoke of his dreams writing stories, seeing the world, loving without fear. As the clock neared midnight, Lucas offered Ethan the couch to sleep on. "Stay as long as you need," he said, his smile gentle but laced with something deeper, something that made Ethan's heart race. He lay awake that night, the storm still howling, wondering if this stranger's kindness was just a momentary refuge or the beginning of something more. The next morning, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, but Ethan wasn't ready to leave. Lucas made pancakes, humming softly as he worked, and Ethan found himself watching, captivated by the ease of his movements. "You don't have to decide anything today," Lucas said, sliding a plate across the table. "But Willow Creek's got room for you, if you want it." Ethan took a bite, the sweetness grounding him. He didn't know what came next, how to face his parents, or if he even wanted to. But for the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could build a life where he was enough. Ethan woke to the smell of coffee and the faint sound of rain tapping the windows. The couch was surprisingly comfortable, but it was Lucas's presence in the kitchen, flipping bacon with a quiet focus, that made the morning feel like a safe harbor. For a moment, Ethan let himself imagine this could be his life: simple mornings, shared silences, a place where he didn't have to hide. "You sleep okay?" Lucas asked, glancing over with a half-smile that made Ethan's stomach flip. He nodded, suddenly shy, and accepted the mug Lucas offered. Their fingers brushed again, and Ethan wondered if Lucas felt the same spark he did or if he was just reading too much into a stranger's kindness. They ate breakfast in companionable silence, the weight of last night's confessions lingering but not suffocating. Ethan stole glances at Lucas, noticing the way his hands moved with purpose, the faint scar above his eyebrow, the warmth in his eyes when he laughed. It was disarming how quickly this stranger felt like someone he'd known forever. "So, what's your plan?" Lucas asked, leaning back in his chair. "Not trying to kick you out, but you can't stay on my couch forever." His tone was light, but his gaze was searching, as if he genuinely cared about the answer. Ethan stared at his plate, the question cutting deeper than he expected. "I don't know," he admitted. "I was supposed to start a job at the library next week. But after last night, I don't know if I can go back to pretending everything's fine." Lucas nodded, like he'd expected that. "You don't have to pretend. Not here." He paused, then added, "There's a community center in town. They've got resources, job boards, support groups. I volunteer there sometimes. Could take you, if you want." Ethan hesitated. The idea of a support group felt exposing, like admitting he was broken. But Lucas's offer was genuine, and the thought of spending more time with him was more appealing than Ethan wanted to admit. "Okay," he said finally. "Let's go." The community center was a short walk away, tucked behind a row of mom-and-pop shops. The rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh and the streets glistening. Lucas walked beside Ethan, their shoulders brushing occasionally, each touch sending a jolt through Ethan's nerves. He tried to focus on the town, its quaint brick buildings, the distant hum of a farmer's market, but his mind kept circling back to Lucas. Why was he being so kind? Was it just pity, or something more? Inside, the center buzzed with quiet energy. A bulletin board was plastered with flyers, job listings, therapy groups, a pride event next month. Ethan's chest tightened at the sight of a rainbow flag pinned to the wall. He'd never been somewhere that openly celebrated who he was. Lucas introduced him to Mia, the center's coordinator, a woman with a sharp wit and a warm hug. "Lucas is our resident hero," she teased, winking at Ethan. "He's always bringing in strays." Ethan flushed, but Lucas just laughed, nudging his shoulder. "Ignore her. She's just jealous I'm giving you all my attention." The words were playful, but they landed like a stone in Ethan's chest, heavy with possibility. Mia handed Ethan a stack of job listings and a pamphlet for a local LGBTQ support group. "No pressure," she said, "but you're welcome here. Always." Ethan nodded, overwhelmed but grateful. For the first time, he felt like he wasn't alone in this fight. Back at Lucas's house, they spent the afternoon sorting through the listings. Lucas sat close, their knees brushing as he pointed out jobs Ethan might like. "This one's at a bookstore," he said, tapping a flyer. "You said you love writing. Could be a good fit." Ethan smiled, touched by how much Lucas remembered. "You're really good at this," he said softly. "Helping people. I mean." Lucas shrugged, but his cheeks pinked slightly. "I just know what it's like to feel lost. Someone helped me once. Figure I should pay it forward." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day. Lucas's kindness, his easy laughter, the way his eyes lingered just a moment too long, it all felt like a dream Ethan didn't deserve. But the more he thought about it, the more he wanted to stay, to see where this connection could lead. The storm had brought him here, but maybe it was more than just chance. Days turned into a week, and Ethan found himself settling into a rhythm at Lucas's house. Mornings were for coffee and quiet conversations. Afternoons for job applications or walks through Willow Creek's winding streets. Lucas was a constant presence, steady, warm, and maddeningly hard to read. Every smile, every casual touch, left Ethan wondering if he was imagining the tension between them. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Ethan gathered the courage to ask, "Why are you doing all this for me? You barely know me." Lucas leaned back, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Honestly, I saw myself in you that night. Scared, alone, thinking the world was done with you. I couldn't just leave you out there." He turned to Ethan, his eyes soft but intense. "Plus, I like having you around. You make this place feel fuller." Ethan's heart stuttered. He wanted to say anything, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he reached for Lucas's hand, a tentative gesture. Lucas didn't pull away. For a moment, they sat there, hands clasped, the silence saying more than words could. The next day, Ethan landed an interview at the bookstore Lucas had pointed out. He was nervous, his palms sweating as he walked into the cozy shop lined with shelves of worn paperbacks. The owner, a kind-eyed woman named Clara, seemed to sense his unease. "You've got a spark," she said after the interview. "We need that here. Start Monday." Ethan left the shop grinning, the weight of the past week lifting slightly. He couldn't wait to tell Lucas. When he got back to the house, Lucas was in the backyard, sanding a wooden chair with focused precision. Ethan watched him for a moment, struck by how natural it felt to come home to him. "I got the job," Ethan said, unable to hide his excitement. Lucas's face lit up, and before Ethan could react, Lucas pulled him into a hug. It was brief but electric, their bodies pressed close for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "I knew you would," Lucas said, pulling back but keeping his hands on Ethan's shoulders. "We're celebrating tonight. My treat." That evening, Lucas took Ethan to a small diner on the edge of town. The place was packed, but Lucas seemed to know everyone, trading jokes with the waitstaff and waving to regulars. Ethan felt a pang of envy at how easily Lucas fit in, but also a flicker of pride. This was his world, and he'd invited Ethan into it. Over burgers and milkshakes, they talked about everything and nothing: childhood dreams, favorite books, the time Lucas accidentally set his kitchen on fire trying to bake. Ethan found himself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in weeks. But as the night wore on, a question gnawed at him. "Lucas," he said, his voice quieter now, "are you like me?" Lucas's smile faded slightly, but his eyes didn't waver. "Yeah," he said simply. "I am. Took me a long time to be okay with it, but I am." The admission hit Ethan like a wave. He'd suspected, hoped even, but hearing it out loud made it real. They sat in silence for a moment, the air between them charged with unspoken possibilities. Ethan wanted to reach across the table, to close the distance, but fear held him back. What if he was misreading this? What if he ruined the one good thing he had left? As they walked home, the stars bright above, Lucas bumped Ethan's shoulder playfully. "You're thinking too hard," he said, his voice teasing but gentle. "Whatever's on your mind, you can say it." Ethan stopped walking, his heart pounding. I don't want to mess this up. You've been so good to me, and I'm scared of wanting more." Lucas turned to face him, his expression soft but serious. "You don't have to be scared," he said. "Not with me." The words hung between them, a promise and a question. Ethan took a step closer, his breath shaky. Lucas didn't move away. And in that moment, under the vast, starlit sky, Ethan felt the first stirrings of something he hadn't dared to hope for: a chance at love. Ethan's first week at the bookstore was a whirlwind of new faces and endless books. But it was Lucas's daily visits that kept him grounded. Lucas would stop by during his lunch break, bringing coffee or a sarcastic comment about Ethan's choice of reading material. Each visit left Ethan buzzing, torn between gratitude and a growing ache for something more. One afternoon, as Ethan shelved books, Lucas leaned against the counter, watching him with a grin. "You look good in here," he said. "Like you belong." Ethan flushed, fumbling a paperback. "You're distracting me," he muttered, but he couldn't hide his smile. Lucas's presence was a tether, pulling him through the uncertainty of his new life. But with every touch, every lingering glance, the line between friendship and something deeper blurred. That evening, Lucas invited Ethan to a bonfire at the community center, a monthly event for locals to gather and unwind. Ethan hesitated, wasn't used to crowds, especially not ones where he might have to be open about who he was. But Lucas's quiet encouragement was impossible to resist. "You don't have to say anything," Lucas said. "Just come. Be you." The bonfire was set in a clearing behind the center, the flames casting a warm glow over a mix of faces: young, old, queer, straight, all laughing and sharing stories. Ethan felt out of place at first, but Lucas stayed close, introducing him to friends who welcomed him like family. Mia was there, roasting marshmallows and teasing Lucas about his new favorite person. Ethan's cheeks burned, but Lucas just laughed, slinging an arm around Ethan's shoulders. As the night wore on, they found a quiet spot away from the crowd, sitting on a blanket under the stars. The firelight danced in Lucas's eyes, and Ethan felt a pull he couldn't ignore. "I've never had this," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "A place where I feel okay." Lucas's expression softened. "You deserve it," he said. "More than you know." The air between them crackled, and Ethan's heart raced. He leaned closer, driven by a courage he didn't know he had. Lucas met him halfway, their lips brushing in a kiss that was soft, tentative, but electric. It was over in a moment, but it left Ethan breathless, his world tilting on its axis. "I've wanted to do that since the first night," Lucas murmured, his forehead resting against Ethan's. "But I didn't want to push you." Ethan laughed, a shaky, relieved sound. "You're not pushing," he said. "I want this too." They kissed again, slower this time, the world fading to just the two of them. For the first time, Ethan felt whole, not defined by his parents' rejection or his own fears, but by the possibility of love, of a future he could build with Lucas. But the next morning, reality crept back in. Ethan's phone, now charged, buzzed with a voicemail from his mother. Her voice was strained, apologetic, asking him to come home and talk. Ethan's stomach churned. He wanted to believe she meant it, that there was a chance for reconciliation. But his father's words still echoed in his mind. He showed the message to Lucas, expecting support. But Lucas's face clouded. "Be careful," Lucas said, his voice tight. "I know you want them back, but sometimes family isn't what you hope it'll be." Ethan frowned, sensing a story behind Lucas's words. "What happened with your dad? You never talk about it." Lucas looked away, his jaw tight. "He didn't just kick me out. He hit me. Said I was an embarrassment. I tried going back once, thinking he'd changed. He hadn't." He met Ethan's eyes, his gaze raw. "I just don't want you to get hurt." Ethan's heart ached for Lucas, but the voicemail gnawed at him. He wanted to believe his parents could be different, that love could win out. Against Lucas's quiet protests, he decided to go home, promising to be back by evening. Lucas nodded, but the worry in his eyes lingered. As Ethan drove to his parents' house, the storm clouds gathered again, a fitting omen for the confrontation ahead. The drive to Ethan's parents' house felt like a journey into a past he wasn't sure he could face. The familiar streets of his childhood, lined with maple trees and picket fences, now felt alien, tainted by the memory of his father's rejection. He gripped the steering wheel, Lucas's warning echoing in his mind. But hope clung stubbornly to his heart. His mother opened the door, her eyes red-rimmed but warm. "Ethan," she whispered, pulling him into a hug. It was the kind of embrace he'd craved, but it felt fragile, like it could break with a wrong word. His father sat in the living room, his face unreadable, a beer bottle in hand. Ethan braced himself, the air thick with tension. "I'm sorry about the other night," his mother began, her voice trembling. "We were shocked, but we want to understand. Ethan, we want you home." Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to believe her, but his father's silence was deafening. Finally, his father spoke, his voice gruff. "This thing you're doing, it's not right. But you're still our son. We can work through it." The words were a concession, but they felt hollow. Ethan saw the strain in his father's jaw, the way his hands clenched the bottle. This wasn't acceptance, it was tolerance, at best. Still, Ethan stayed, desperate to salvage something of his family. They talked for hours, his mother asking cautious questions, his father mostly listening. But every time Ethan mentioned Lucas or his new life in Willow Creek, his father's face darkened. By the time Ethan left, the sky was heavy with clouds again. His mother hugged him tightly, promising to call, but his father only nodded. Driving back to Lucas's, Ethan felt more confused than ever. He wanted his family, but he also wanted the freedom to be himself. Could he have both? Lucas was waiting on the porch when Ethan pulled up, his expression a mix of relief and worry. "How'd it go?" he asked, his voice careful. Ethan sighed, sitting beside him. "They want me back. But it's complicated. My dad's trying, I think. But it's not like he gets it." Lucas nodded, his eyes distant. "Mine never did. I kept hoping." But he trailed off, then took Ethan's hand. "Just don't let them make you feel like you're less than you are." Ethan squeezed his hand, grateful for the anchor. That night, they cooked dinner together, the act grounding them both. As they chopped vegetables side by side, Lucas's shoulder brushed Ethan's, and the tension from the day melted away. They laughed, stole kisses, and for a moment, the world felt right. But the peace was short-lived. The next morning, Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Your father wants to meet Lucas. Come for dinner tomorrow." Ethan's stomach dropped. He showed the message to Lucas, expecting resistance. But Lucas surprised him. "I'll go," he said, his voice steady. "If it's important to you, I'm in." Ethan felt a surge of gratitude, but also fear. Bringing Lucas into his parents' world felt like crossing a battle line. He didn't know if it would bridge the gap or widen it, but he knew he couldn't do it alone. Lucas's hand found his, a silent promise to face it together. As they prepared for the dinner, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that another storm was coming, one that might test not just his family, but the fragile, beautiful thing growing between him and Lucas. The dinner loomed like a thunderhead on the horizon. Ethan spent the day restless, pacing Lucas's living room while Lucas stayed calm, sanding a table with steady hands. "It'll be okay," Lucas said. But Ethan saw the tightness in his jaw, the echo of his own past lingering in his eyes. They drove to Ethan's parents' house in silence, the radio filling the gaps. Ethan's mother greeted them at the door, her smile nervous but genuine. His father stood in the kitchen, his expression guarded but not hostile. Ethan introduced Lucas, his voice steady despite the knot in his chest. "This is Lucas. He's important to me." Lucas shook his father's hand, his grip firm, his smile polite but unyielding. Dinner was tense, the clink of silverware loud in the silence. Ethan's mother tried to keep things light, asking Lucas about his carpentry work. But his father's questions were pointed. "So, you just took my son in?" he asked, his tone sharp. "What's your angle?" Lucas didn't flinch. "No angle," he said evenly. "Ethan needed help. I had a couch. That's how it started." Ethan's father grunted, unconvinced. The conversation stumbled along, each question from his father feeling like a test. Ethan wanted to defend Lucas, to tell his father how much Lucas had saved him. But fear kept him quiet. He hated himself for it. After dinner, his father asked to speak to Ethan alone. In the backyard, under the same oak tree where Ethan had played as a kid, his father's voice was low but firm. "I'm trying, Ethan." But this, he gestured vaguely toward the house. "Toward Lucas, it's not what I wanted for you. I need time." Ethan's heart sank. I'm not asking you to love it, he said, his voice shaking. I'm asking you to love me. His father looked away, his silence louder than words. When Ethan returned to the house, Lucas was helping his mother with dishes, their laughter a stark contrast to the weight in Ethan's chest. On the drive home, Lucas reached for his hand. You okay? He asked. Ethan shook his head. I thought he'd try harder. Lucas squeezed his hand. Give him time. Or don't. But don't let him define you. Back at Lucas's, they sat on the couch, the tension of the night melting into something softer. Lucas pulled Ethan close, and they kissed, slow and deep, each touch a reminder that Ethan wasn't alone. For the first time, he let himself believe he could build a life with Lucas, even if his family never came around. But the next day, a letter arrived from Ethan's father. It was short, written in his careful, blocky handwriting. I'm sorry I can't be what you need, but I'm trying. Come back when you're ready. Ethan stared at the words, torn between hope and hurt. He showed the letter to Lucas, who read it silently, his face unreadable. He's trying, Lucas said finally, but his voice was guarded. But you need to decide what you're willing to wait for. Ethan didn't have an answer. He wanted his family, but he also wanted Lucas the life they were starting to build. The choice felt impossible, and as he lay awake that night, Lucas's arm around him, he wondered how much more he could lose before he broke. The weeks that followed were a delicate balance. Ethan threw himself into his job at the bookstore, finding solace in the quiet rhythm of shelving books and helping customers. Lucas was a constant, his presence a steady light in Ethan's still healing heart. They fell into a routine morning coffee, evening walks, stolen kisses in the glow of the porch light. But Ethan's father's letter lingered, a shadow he couldn't shake. One afternoon, Mia invited them to a pride event at the community center, a small but vibrant celebration with music, food, and a sense of belonging Ethan had never known. He hesitated, still wary of being so openly himself. But Lucas's quiet encouragement pushed him to go. The event was a revelation, people laughing, dancing, unafraid. Ethan watched Lucas move through the crowd, his ease and confidence magnetic. For the first time, Ethan felt proud not just of Lucas, but of himself. As they danced under string lights, Lucas pulled Ethan close, his voice low. You're stronger than you think, he said. You're here, living your truth. That's everything. Ethan's throat tightened. I couldn't have done it without you, he admitted. Lucas's smile was soft, but his eyes held a depth that made Ethan's heart race. They kissed, the world fading to just them. And Ethan felt a certainty he hadn't before. He was falling in love. But the high was short-lived. The next day, Ethan's mother called, her voice urgent. Your father's in the hospital, she said. Heart attack. He's asking for you. Ethan's world tilted. He drove to the hospital, Lucas by his side, his mind a tangle of fear and guilt. His father was stable but weak, his face pale against the hospital sheets. Ethan's mother hugged him, tears in her eyes. He's been talking about you, she said. He's sorry, Ethan. He wants to make things right. When Ethan sat by his father's bed, the older man reached for his hand, his grip surprisingly strong. I was wrong, he said, his voice hoarse. I don't understand everything, but I don't want to lose you. The words hit Ethan like a tidal wave. He wanted to believe them, but years of hurt made it hard. Still, He nodded, tears burning his eyes. "I'm here," he said. "We'll figure it out." Lucas waited in the hallway, his presence a quiet strength. When Ethan emerged, shaken but hopeful, Lucas pulled him into a hug. "You did good," he whispered. "Whatever happens, I've got you." That night, back at Lucas's, Ethan felt the weight of the day settle. He told Lucas about his father's words, the tentative hope they sparked. Lucas listened, his face a mix of relief and caution. "I'm happy for you," he said. "But don't forget who you are. Okay? You fought hard for that." Ethan nodded, pulling Lucas close. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "Not without you." As they lay together, the future felt uncertain but not impossible. Ethan knew the road ahead would be hard reconciling with his family, building a life with Lucas but for the first time. He believed he could do it. Months passed, and Ethan's life took on a new shape. His father's recovery was slow, but each visit brought small steps toward understanding. His mother joined a support group for parents of LGBTQ kids, her questions growing more open, her love more visible. Ethan's father still struggled, but he listened, and that was enough for now. At the bookstore, Ethan thrived, his love for stories spilling into his work. He started writing again, short pieces about love and loss, inspired by the life he was building. Lucas read every word, his feedback gentle but honest, his pride in Ethan palpable. Their relationship deepened, each day a discovery. Lucas taught Ethan to sandwood, his hands guiding Ethan's with a patience that felt like love. Ethan introduced Lucas to his favorite novels, reading passages aloud as they curled up on the couch. They fought sometimes over small things, like dishes, or bigger ones, like Ethan's lingering need for his parents' approval, but they always came back to each other, stronger for it. One evening, as spring bloomed around Willow Creek, Lucas took Ethan to the oak tree where they'd first met in the storm. The air was warm, the sky clear, and Lucas's hands were nervous as he pulled out a small wooden box he'd carved himself. Inside was a simple silver ring, etched with a tiny lightning bolt. "I'm not asking for forever," Lucas said, his voice steady but soft. "Not yet. But I want you to know I'm all in. You're my home, Ethan." Tears pricked Ethan's eyes as he took the ring, sliding it onto his finger. "You're mine too," he said, his voice breaking. They kissed under the tree, the memory of that first stormy night now a promise of something enduring. Ethan's journey wasn't over. His family was still healing, and he was still learning to love himself fully. But with Lucas by his side, Willow Creek felt like a place he could belong. The storm had brought him here, to a stranger who offered warmth and so much more. And in that warmth, Ethan found not just shelter, but a life worth fighting for, one where he could be whole, loved, and free.